I live in the United States of America. My tax dollars literally go directly to this atrocity. I think it's the least I can do is try and communicate everything that is happening and try to get others to also recognize the reality. Let's take a look at CBS Mornings.
This morning to mark 1 year since that terrible Hamas attack that sparked the war in Gaza. One ceremony was held at the site of a music festival where hundreds of the victims were killed. Over the weekend, there were demonstrations around the world in support of both Israel and the Palestinian people. The October 7th attack, we all remember this, stunned the world with stories of horror and brutality. 1,200 people were killed in those attacks. Since then, the fighting in Gaza has been raging with tens of thousands dead. Elizabeth Palmer is in Israel at one of the areas attacked last year.
Good morning. This is Kibbutz Be'eri, about 3 miles from Gaza. And reminders of the massacre are everywhere, like the burned out house you can see behind me. It's where Hamas murdered Yuval Haran's father and kidnapped his mother and 6 other members of the family. It's just one of the traumatic stories that Israelis are reliving today, a year after the October 7th attack. The attack began with Hamas terrorists shooting their way out of Gaza.
Damn, dude. That's crazy. I hadn't heard this. I'm glad for some new, refreshing perspectives from our journalism. It's been a year and the government still hasn't even fixed a goddamn thing. They really don't give a shit about their citizens. Yeah. Well, I mean, for the kibbutz, it's like much better to leave them distraught and leave them like that so you can point to it and be like, see, look at this house. Look at this house. Shooting their way out of Gaza is a 10-10 line. Yeah, it's like a weird editorial quirk that they like kind of left in there that goes against the prevailing narrative that these guys are, you know, they were living happily inside of Gaza and then they anti-Semitically decided to attack Israel. Yeah, they were. Like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. They shot their way out of their concentration camp. It's 100% correct. And if you are knowledgeable on the matter, then you recognize that obviously Israel sets the standards for the violence. Thing is, a lot of the October 7th coverage rings hollow when you've used it to justify genocide for the past 12 months. You can't like try and relitigate this stuff when people have heard it, the exact same sentiment expressed over and over again. Anytime a school is bombed, anytime a mosque is bombed by Israel, anytime an orphanage is struck by Israel and like tens of thousands of children are burned and dying in the rubble, and Israel's like, well, remember October 7? Like, yeah, dude, we know. But the reality is you can't message your way out of the actions at this point.
Asked Israeli border security to launch a pitiless attack on young people attending a music festival. It was chaos, a killing spree, and mass kidnapping.
Another thing that's like pretty crazy about this situation is that like the music festival was being conducted on the border of a goddamn Israeli air prison, open air prison. Not only was it being conducted there, but there was obviously information ahead of time that this would not be a good idea. Israel, in all of its hubris and arrogance, let it happen anyway. Yeah, zone of interest, 100%. They didn't give a shit. They didn't give a shit at all. Yeah, I know they played EDM music at the October 7th ceremony. I know, I saw. They even extended the Nova Music Festival by 1 day, despite forewarning that it would not be a good idea. Why do we know all of this? Because there's an active lawsuit against the Israeli government. Just so you know, you might not hear about it in American news, but obviously, if your loved ones died, you probably want answers for it. You know, regardless of how much you want death and destruction from those who killed them, I think you're going to want to know what kind of like security flaws existed, and you're going to want closure, which is why the family members of those who were killed at the Nova Music Festival have opened up lawsuits against the Israeli government. Everything you need to understand about Israel, or everything you want to contextualize about like Israeli actions post October 7, can be defined with one very simple, albeit reductive concept. The Israeli government cares more about bloody imperial ambition and conquest than they do about the livelihoods and their lives of their own citizens. That's it. Okay? That was clear from October 7, when there were Palestinian resistance forces and even other unaffiliated elements like criminal elements and whatnot that penetrated the Israeli border wall and went into Israel proper. Okay? And they were wreaking havoc, overtaking positions, taking over military command. And Israel's first action was to bomb Gaza. Israel's second action was to bomb its own citizens. They were more predisposed with immediately punishing Gaza. Okay? Just so you understand, they care less about their own citizens than they do. They care less about their own citizens than they do about gaining territory. Okay? Why didn't Hamas attack Israeli military instead of innocent civilians? Yeah. Good question. I don't know if you know this, but they did. They shred through Israeli military installations. They did. How are you 12 months late? 1,200 people dead, killed. 400 of them directly were in active combat or soldiers. 400. The ratio is 800 to 400. What's interesting about this ratio is that it is a far better, far more moral, if you want to consider it that, ratio in terms of enemy combatant to civilian deaths, just so you understand. This is before we even think about, Israeli army reservists and those who were not on active duty in uniform, but had actually been conscripted in the past. Remember, if you look at that number, it's like virtually every single Israeli citizen that was killed or captured it would be considered a valid military target. I'm not saying that. I'm not considering that because I'm not Israel. Israel literally would never make that distinction. They kill literally civilians, like straight up babies on a regular frequency without ever even feeling remotely sad about the prospect, without ever having to address said crimes. Like, can you imagine if someone was like, all right, Israel killed this guy. He used to be a Hamas guy, but he's no longer in combat, so he counts as a civilian casualty? No.
There and on nearby kibbutzim, where 101 people were murdered, some burned alive in their homes, and even babies abducted. Israel's response was immediate. It bombed Gaza, then sent in ground forces. The mission? To destroy Hamas and rescue the hostages. A year later, neither has been accomplished. 97 hostages taken on October 7th are presumed still to be in Gaza, along with 2 million Palestinians trapped in a sliver of land the Israeli military bombs every day. The target, they say, is Hamas. The collateral damage can be anyone else, no matter how small.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of brutal. CBS Morning's kind of, they started off with the both sides shit, but goddamn. Like, they literally are, they're arriving at like what many people recognize like pretty early on. It's, I guess, here's hoping that this is a genuine change of attitude. In the 1 year anniversary of October 7, if they're still being like, yeah, dude, Israel's blowing shit up, it's completely unacceptable. That's definitely a change of attitude overall from their regular coverage. Calling it collateral is still demonic. I agree. I agree. Make no mistake. It's still not where it's supposed to be if this was honest and decent reporting. But, it is a change of attitude. that I do recognize. You should recognize that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, and sometimes it comes 21 minutes into the top of the hour. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you could do for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Here is the 3-minute ad break now.
As for the physical destruction, on a recent visit to southern Gaza with the military, we saw nothing but ruins. Recent polling data shows a slim majority of Israelis want the war in Gaza to end in a deal to bring the hostages home. Easier said than done. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, in hiding, is stalling on a deal and vowing to fight on.
I spoke too soon. That's just a lie. Wow. I spoke too soon. That is an abject lie. That's insane. Hey, how did Yahya Sinwar become the negotiator? Can anybody prime me on this? Because I remember a different guy who was the negotiator. His name was Ismail Haniyeh. How did Yahya Sinwar become the negotiator on the ceasefire? Oh, that's right. Israel assassinated the principal negotiator that was responsible for Hamas's Politburo, who was responsible for the civil governance and not responsible for the military at all. Oh, shit. I mean, I'm sure they're going to mention that here in the reporting, right?
And millions of Israelis believe Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his ultra-right allies are stalling too.
We say that our government are full of excuse my language, and they do nothing. Our Prime Minister is a liar.
Over the past month, Israel's government has led the country into a bigger, riskier war.
It's crazy, bro. You are literally outflanking the Israeli protesters. CBS showing how anti-Semitic this Jewish Israeli man is for protesting against the Jewish state, the only Jewish state. Does he not know that this is the only Jewish state? What the? It's weird, man. It's I don't understand why you're. Yeah, it must have been a classic self-hating Jew, I think. This is what I mean. Like, bro, before the Lebanese invasion, which definitely benefited Netanyahu's like propaganda purposes, like the Israeli society was on the fucking verge of collapse. They were freaking the fuck out about Benjamin Netanyahu refusing to deal with Hamas with a diplomatic solution. They were angry. Understandably, they were more aware of who was at fault than Americans are, because American media covers it as like Hamas is responsible for not dealing with Israel. Anyway, wait, what? Bro, this chat is awesome. The guy that worked with Hitler Law, 1 year in Israel, still standing. Why are these plebeian Hamas and Hezbollah even still trying, man? What was he responding to? You will not. You're going to love who he thought worked with Hitler. Yasser Arafat. I at this point, I am firmly committed. If you are a defender of Israel, you either are at least like equipped with the Hasbara talking points and you can appear knowledgeable, or you're the dumbest person on the planet. Like this guy who's defending Israel in the chat said Yasser Arafat worked with Hitler. So many people that defend Israel that think like, oh, Israel's so sick. Like, why are they even trying to resist against Israeli genocide? Are just stupid. That's it. So stupid that it's like virtually impossible to deal with them. Like they're not.
Most of the hostages' families fear that means a death sentence for their loved ones. As one speaker said at a memorial we attended this morning, we all know this war is going to end in an agreement. It's just a question of how many lives will be lost between now and then. Gail?
We still want the end sooner rather than later. Thank you, Elizabeth Palmer, reporting from southern Israel.
Overseas now to the Middle East, where Israel observed a moment of silence marking 1 year since the October 7th war, since the massacre by Hamas. Right now, the war is being conducted on multiple fronts, with Israel intensifying attacks in Gaza and in Lebanon, and the region bracing for a possible Israeli strike on Iran. Matt Gutman is on the scene in Israel. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, George, from the youth village of Kfar Aza. And you can still see the bullet holes and the burn scars in houses like this. And the last time I was here about a year ago.
Man, shut the up, dude. Go to Gaza one time, you piece of shit. What do you think Gaza looks like? The entirety of Gaza, dude, for the past 12 months. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, dude. This is nutty. These people have no respect for the dead on the Israeli side either. Like, it's simply just a talking point, dude. That's it. That's it. That literally is it. Oh, it's collateral damage. The way that they're assessing, the way that they are looking at the dead Israeli Jewish population as nothing but collateral damage. I swear to God, it is just a way to market Israel's territorial ambition. That's it. Oh, look at these bullet holes, man. We didn't fix it. 12 months of genocide. Bloodless charlatans, dude. Monstrous pieces of shit.
They were pulling bodies out of these houses. There were ferocious gun battles with Hamas all around. And a year on, Israel does feel safer, but that war drags on. Just a few moments ago, we heard a series of devastating...
The irony is, I was genuinely asking if you were okay. You time me out for 24 hours for no reason. No wonder why people hate you. You make yourself an unlikable person by punishing people who are here to listen to you. But whatever, I'm going to listen to someone else. How many calories do you eat a day? I'm having anxiety over this. Dude, shut up. She's like Rocky. She's the underdog. Are you voting? You can't be mad today. I didn't even time you out. Lake McGroove did. But they probably did the right thing. It's valid. Dude, really, really, really reconsider your reaction to being timed out. You can still watch. You just can't write for 24 hours. I wasn't even streaming. Okay? I wasn't even streaming in that time frame anyway. Well, I guess this was on 10/3. You didn't get banned. You just got timed out. You got silenced for 86,400 seconds. Do you really think this is a healthy attitude to have? I love you. Can you say I love you back? Huh. There are 32,000 people in here chatting. Chat's going a mile a minute. Sometimes in an effort to make sure that discourse stays on its normal trajectory, we have to silence people who are spamming irrelevant shit. Because I read the entirety of chat. Please. This is unhealthy. This is like almost terrifying, the way you change your attitude because you got timed out. Like you were put in a timeout corner gently for such a short period of time that you're like, I hate you. And no wonder why people hate you, dude. Because I got timed out for 24 hours. Like, calm down, man. Please. I think for so many people, it is that simple, though. Like, a lot of people spam shit in the chat, and then Fossabot times them out. They don't know what happened. And then they just, like, develop this resentment. They're like, oh, this guy, like, I hate him. I've been supporting him for years and years, and this is how he treats me. F this guy. I hate him. All of his haters were correct. And then they just, like, rewrite their entire worldview. Seemingly in a matter of weeks. Meanwhile, I didn't even know this person got timed out. There are probably people like that in the chat right now. They're like, damn, I hope you recognize most of the time it's not me. You're probably getting auto-modded because you keep spamming the same shit.
Stating airstrikes just across the border in Gaza. This morning, as Israel marks October 7th, the multiple conflicts triggered by Hamas's rampage are escalating. Overnight, the IDF saying they attacked Hezbollah munitions warehouses in Beirut, igniting those fireworks like secondary explosions. And in Gaza, Israel renewing its ground operations in the north for the third time. Airstrikes hitting a mosque and a school in a designated safer zone. The IDF saying they targeted Hamas command posts. 26 people killed, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health, which also says about 42,000 Palestinians have been killed since this war began.
That's insane. They're still doing the Hamas-run health ministry shit. I hate this, man. These guys are such monstrous scumbags. I hope they can't sleep at night for the senseless brutality, the untold senseless brutality that they have been a vociferous defender of. I really do. I hope they have night terrors where they see all of the death, all the dead and the destroyed lives that they have defended to an American public that is simply trying to get informed. Earlier today, the IDF ordered everyone in northern Gaza to evacuate toward Al-Mawazi, practically identical to the orders given on October 14th, calling for a temporary evacuation south. With the northern front, I doubt will reflect, but Gaza is still a mirror. In 1971, when Ariel Sharon's tanks were ravaging through Gaza City, Mahmoud Darwish wrote, "There can be no total victory with occupation. Gaza will win. She will win. Gaza is a mirror. I think we refuse to look."
And overnight in Israel,
like, that's crazy, man. Deaths inside of Israel 12 months ago, they still talk and offer humanity to. Deaths that literally happened last night in the hands of Israel to the Palestinians, they just cover as a brief footnote. It's so obvious. It's so disgusting. It is so glaringly obvious, a double standard. They just do not view Palestinians as humans. That's it.
Israel, hundreds gathering at the site of the Nova Music Festival to mark the moment the massacre started there. It was early morning, October 7th, when Hamas terrorists stormed into Israel, killing about 1,200 people. Those harrowing videos showing mass abductions.
I'm reliving October 7th all the time. It's with me. I'm still in Gaza. I'm still with Keith and the girls and all the hostages.
Aviva Siegel and her husband Keith, who is an American, were among the more than 250 taken from Israel. She was released in a November ceasefire deal.
I nearly died. I'm lucky to be standing next to you, and I'm lucky that I got out. I'm lucky, but I'm the unluckiest person in Earth.
She's South African.
Because Keith is there.
What were your parting words to Keith?
I looked at him in the eyes and I said, Keith, you be strong for me, and I'll be strong for you.
The memory's still fresh for those in Kibbutz Be'eri.
In homes like these, the walls are still scarred with those bullet holes. You can see the ceilings are charred from the fires and the grenades and the RPGs.
Yuval Haran's father was murdered at this house.
The terrorists, they brought a digger and they started breaking the window of the safe room.
7 of his family members taken. Thankfully, 6 were returned in that hostage deal, but his brother-in-law, Tal, is still there.
I want to remind people that we are about life, to remind people that when you saw hostages come back in the first deal, how happy you are. I want this happiness again. I don't want war. I just want my family back.
About 100 hostages remain in Gaza. Israeli officials tell me they believe about 50 of them are still alive. Yesterday, I sat down with U.S. Ambassador here, Jack Lew, who's been meeting with the American families, also critical in the negotiations. He told me at this point he would like to be able to give those families some hope, but he says he is not hopeful right now for those ceasefire and hostage release negotiations. George.
Matt Gutman, thanks.
Let's talk about 1 year of war in Gaza.
What? Do you recommend One Day in September docu-movie? Is it neutral and worth watching? Can it respectful sources learn new information? I don't even know what the documentary is. The standard for objective news reporting has to be that a life is a life. A life is worth cherishing no matter what background it comes from, no matter what its opinion is. This is not a standard in American news. Okay? The only lives worth cherishing are inside of Israel. All the lives that have been lost, all the lives that have been taken, cut short by the Israeli military are simply treated as collateral damage over and over and over again. That's it.
For Palestinians, it's been 12 months of unprecedented loss and suffering.
Living here in Gaza feels like being trapped in a never-ending cycle of trauma. Everything you hear or see about Gaza is just the tip of the iceberg. No photo or video can convey the smell of death, the sound of 24/7 drones. The uncertainty of whether you or your family will make it through another day hangs over every moment of each day.
The number of journalists killed, the number of medical workers killed, the number of schools destroyed, the percentage of amputated children. This is the worst war in modern history.
A lot has happened since October 7th, 2023. So I'm going to run you through some of the main updates on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, what's going on with the Israeli captives, what's going on with Hamas, and where things are at with the ceasefire. Let's start with the human cost in Gaza. Remember, we're talking about a tiny strip of land densely packed with more than 2 million people who can't leave, where Israel has dropped thousands of bombs. More than 40,000 people have been killed, according to Gaza's health ministry. It recently published this list, naming more than 30,000 of the dead. It's 649 pages long. The first 13 pages are all babies under 1. It's not until page 215 that you see the name of an adult.
This year has been a relentless cycle of loss of loved ones, loss of homes, and loss of livelihoods.
أرجو أن تستفيقوا وأن توقفوا هذه الإبادة المتلفزة.
Right now, the UN's highest court is deciding whether Israel's actions in Gaza amount to genocide, an accusation Israel rejects.
Gaza has been devastated by Israel's bombing. By May 2024, more than half of all of Gaza's buildings had been damaged or destroyed, according to the UN. It's not just thousands of residential buildings, but also roads, farmland, mosques, churches, hospitals, universities, and schools.
The landscape is totally decimated and destroyed.
Nearly everyone in Gaza, 90% of the population, has been forced to leave their home. Many people have had to pack up and move over and over again, and are living in bombed-out buildings, tents, and out in the streets.
نزحت من غزة لخان يونس، من خان يونس لحمد، من حمد للجمهور 20 مرة. بعدنا وفقدنا كتير.
المرة السابعة ما ضلش خلص حلونا بكفي.
أنا بدي أعرف واحد يطلع إعلام يقول لي وين الناس تروح؟ عن جد وين الناس تروح؟
The Israeli military has issued dozens of evacuation orders, telling civilians to go to so-called safe zones, while it says it goes after Hamas fighters. But even those zones are coming under fire. Humanitarian agencies say nowhere in Gaza is safe.
Daylight gives you a sense of the power that came from the air. Israel says it targeted various Hamas field commanders. But what that means is that Israel targeted a camp for the internally displaced. Their tarpaulin tents no protection against Israel's military might. Israel deemed this a safe zone.
That was in Al-Mawasi in September. At least 19 people were killed.
Times and times again, we have seen Israel justifying massacres in order to pursue the alleged killing of a militant. But by this token, Israel is given license to kill everyone in Gaza by simply claiming that it was to kill a Hamas combatant. This is indecent. I mean, it's beyond unlawful.
So what's happening with aid delivery? Remember, at the start of the war, Israel imposed a complete siege on Gaza.
When people ask me, like, how can you tolerate watching this every single day? Dog, I live in West Hollywood, Los Angeles, okay? I live in the United States of America. My tax dollars literally go directly to this atrocity. I think it's the least I can do as a person with some level of notoriety, as a person with a platform. The least I can do is try and communicate everything that is happening and try to get others to also recognize the reality. That is my job. That is my responsibility, and that is what I will continue doing. Okay? No matter what kind of penalties I incur in this process, whether I am branded an anti-Semite, whether I have letter writing campaigns that try to stop me from going and speaking at college campuses, or no matter what, it is nothing. It is nothing in comparison to what the average Palestinian child goes through on a daily fucking basis. Okay? We live in the lap of luxury with profound privilege. That's why we must do everything in our power to put a stop to this, to try and get others to recognize what is going on. That's why I always urge you to protest. That's why I urge you to do as much as you can. That's it. It's disgusting.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
Israel has been accused of using starvation as a weapon of war, including by the UN's Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food. In a report to the UN General Assembly, he said Israel made its intentions to starve everyone in Gaza explicit. Then, Israel used starvation to induce forcible transfer, harm, and death against people in the north, pushing people into the south, only to starve, bombard, and kill people in newly created refugee camps in the south.
Around 500,000 people are facing catastrophic levels of food insecurity. In other words, they're facing famine. In August, an average of just 69 aid trucks entered Gaza per day, which is a record low. Aid groups say Israel is blocking 83% of the required food aid from reaching Gaza.
On top of all of that, disease is spreading because there's not enough clean water.
The lack of clean water has led to 1.7 million cases of infection diseases that can trigger massive and deadly epidemics, making water scarcity and contamination a silent bomb which has far less visibility than those that destroy buildings, but are no less lethal bomb.
The risk of disease is coupled with a desperate lack of medical care. Doctors Without Borders says Gaza's healthcare system is being methodically dismantled through Israeli attacks, the blocking of aid, and the lack of protection for medical staff. Before the war, Gaza had 36 hospitals. Now, just 17 are partially functioning, according to the UN.
It does feel like people are waiting for death. Death seems to be the only certainty in this situation, in all of this uncertainty. And that's a really horrific reality for people to have on the ground here.
Now, for Israelis, one of the biggest concerns since Hamas's attack in October last year, when more than 1,000 people were killed, has been the fate of the captives.
By the way, while this is like a year of analysis on Gaza, understand that this is Evan Hill from Washington Post Open Source and Visual Forensics Investigations Team. Demolition of buildings along the likely IDF route of advance in Yaroun, Lebanon. Many such cases. It's seemingly endless, okay? It's ceaseless bloodshed and territorial expansion and acquisition. Why should anyone stand idly by and say this is normal? How can anyone look at this and go, well, Israel's in a bad neighborhood? Israel is the bad neighborhood. Israel is responsible for the neighborhood being bad. A study conducted by scholars from various Gaza universities, all of which have now been destroyed by the Israeli military, found that the average Palestinian in the Strip has lost over 22 pounds in weight since October 7th, 2023. Before people say it's not peer-reviewed, it's simply not peer-reviewed yet. Of course, we know this to be the case. I had a survivor of Israeli genocide on this broadcast last week. He also confirmed his own personal anecdote, his own personal experiences. Another thing he mentioned on this broadcast was that Aaron Bushnell was a hero. However, you need to be alive to keep fighting for the Palestinian plight. Just remember that. I saw some chatter saying some silly shit. Okay? You are more valuable as a person who is alive, who goes out and protests, who lends a voice to the Palestinian humanity and its resilience. You are more valuable alive than you are dead. Okay? seeing all of this monstrous bloodshed and recognizing your inability to make change in the face of it all should not lead you to do such things. Okay? Speaking of which, CBS News invited a self-described mental health expert, DI strategist, and trauma trainer, Dr. Donald Grant, to moderate a conversation on this issue in an all-staff meeting. Why? According to Puck News, CBS News has been roiling after a CBS Mornings interview with anchor Tony DeCoppel pressed Ta-Nehisi Coates over his pro-Palestinian framing of the Israel-Palestine conflict. The interview was celebrated by many, tense and substantive, per WAPO, but angered some at CBS who felt DeCoppel brought his own bias. The pee-pee, the cock pill, the double circ man himself. Okay? This morning on October 7th, CBS News leader Wendy McMahon and Adrian Rourke told staff that the interview did not meet editorial standards for impartiality, though they declined to elaborate on how or why. When they tried to move on, CBS News chief legal correspondent John Crawford criticized the leaders for their decision, saying the following: "I don't even understand how Tony's interview failed to meet our own editorial standards. I thought our commitment was to the truth. When someone comes on air with a one-sided account of a very complex situation, which Coates himself acknowledges that he has, it's my understanding that as a journalist, we are obligated to challenge that worldview." So just understand that, like, the institutional rot is in every aspect of this conversation. You got the chief legal, the chief legal correspondent, John Crawford, being like, excuse me, if someone is saying that they find apartheid to be morally repugnant, that's one-sided. By those very same standards, for the record, if a Holocaust scholar was to go on CBS, and say what the Nazis did was atrocious during the Holocaust, someone on the CBS editorial team is allowed to go, well, you seem kind of one-sided about the Holocaust. If someone were to talk about the apartheid in South Africa and say it's morally repugnant that it existed, a historian, a scholar, an activist, a journalist, the CBS chief legal correspondent is saying, you can't do that. If someone were to go on CBS News and say chattel slavery was an unimaginable atrocity, a stain on the reputation of the United States of America, someone on CBS would have to say, excuse me, seems a little one-sided. The slave owners had a right to defend their property. Of course, these examples would never happen because those are in the background now. Many of these people have already tried and failed to defend these institutions that churned out unimaginable violence. And now we look back at it as, dark stains in our history. But if it's happening currently, well, then it's complex and nuanced. And how dare you? How dare you say you are morally against apartheid? Crawford. And that's what Tony did. He challenged Coates' one-sided worldview. Coates got the response. It was civil. I don't see how we can say that it failed to meet our editorial standards. Tony prevented a one-sided account from being broadcast on our network about a deeply complex situation that completely was devoid of history or fact. As journalists, that's what we have an obligation to do. So after that process, CBS News is doing trauma counseling. There's another reason, in my opinion, why CBS News is doing trauma counseling, however, and it's not mentioned in this, but I suspect that a part of the reason why they're doing that is because of the one dude who is in the CBS News team that went out to a pro-Palestinian demonstration and tried to not fully self-immolate, but burn his own arm. That was basically suppressed in mainstream coverage. I suspect that might have something to do with it. I don't know if this person is still a part of the CBS News team, or if he was actively a part of the CBS News team at the time, or worked at CBS at a certain point. Some chatters are saying he worked at CBS Phoenix. According to Washington Post, journalists' distress over Israel-Gaza war spurned self-immolation, writings show. Samuel Mena Jr. appears to have grown so disillusioned with his profession that he felt compelled to light himself on fire in DC on Saturday to promote his cause. Please watch the Instagram stream, Mena wrote to Micah Warnock Estrada on Saturday, according to a message Warnock Estrada read to the Washington Post. I need at least one pair of eyes on it. Mena did not indicate what he planned to do, so Warnock Estrada watched in surprise as Mena read from a script that expressed disillusionment with the journalism profession, remorse for a perceived role in Palestinian suffering, and commitment to sacrificing an arm to the children in Gaza, Warnock Estrada recalled. I give my left arm to you, Mena wrote on his personal website ahead of Saturday's pro-Palestinian demonstration, referring to the children in Gaza who have lost limbs in a message that Warnock Estrada said echoed Mena's video script. I pray my voice was able to raise up yours and that your smiles never disappear. Then Mena of Phoenix ignited his left arm, becoming the second person this year to set fire to themselves in the nation's capital to protest Israel's military actions in Gaza. DC police did not identify the man, but Mena's mother, who declined to speak about the incident on the record, confirmed her son was the person burned. Mena did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The local and Arizona organizers spoke with the Post, said Mena and his plans were not known to them. The Post also reached out to dozens of relatives, friends, former colleagues, and classmates of Mena, all whom did not respond or decline the comment. It's not clear how Mena, 6 years after graduating from Arizona State University's journalism school, became so disillusioned with his profession that he compelled to harm himself publicly. What do you mean it's not clear? What are you talking about? It is pretty clear. I mean, he said why he did it. His posts on the website and social media reflect the person grappling with feelings of outrage, helplessness, and guilt. Though there isn't any indication his job as a local news reporter had him directly covering the Israel-Gaza war. For months, he wrote, he had been asking himself, what are you going to do? Mena was a news photographer for Arizona's Family, a Phoenix-based broadcast network, but was not in Washington in any professional capacity, according to a statement from on the Arizona Family's website. Arizona Family expects its newsroom employees to conduct themselves with neutrality and objectivity, the statement on its website reads. Mena is no longer an employee. It's 4 people who have in whole or in part self-immolated for Palestine this year. Jane Doe in Atlanta, Aaron Bushnell, and a man in Boston outside the Israeli consulate last month, and now the CBS reporter. The rally at which he conducted his extreme act was scheduled to mark a year since October 7, 2023, when Hamas militants attacked Israel, leaving 1,200 dead and taking more than 250 hostages. The attack set off a devastating war, and in the year since, demonstrators have frequently gathered in the Washington region. What about the TrueAnon poster, the Trump trial? Yeah, dog, that guy was not even remotely related to Israel-Palestine. That dude was just insane. I think what did he do? He was like, he said the New York crime family was like directly related. I don't know. I don't even remember what the he was about. That dude was just crazy. Sometimes dudes are just crazy, okay? Yeah. My bad. I thought he said it was Israel. No, he brought up Israel, but in a way that had nothing to do with Gaza. Like he brought up, I think he was saying like NYU is in the pocket of the Italian mob or something, and the Jews were also responsible for it. I don't know. Yeah, he was blaming Robert De Niro for being in cahoots with Joe Biden. That dude was a nutter. Did he survive it or did he die? I don't even remember. Check what Jimmy Normandy said. You got timed out by Foss about Jimmy Normandy. But Jimmy Normandy said, I've seen this before. The reason for the trauma counseling is as first to find the rogue elements within the company, then to counsel them to change their minds. And if the counseling fails, they are considered beyond help and as such are fired on psychological grounds. I don't think you can do that. I think what you're describing is like insanely illegal in a way that like, I'm sure people try to do it, but they won't do it on psychological grounds. They'll say you're not like a cultural fit or something. But even in that situation, if they are so stupid as to do that, there is a major labor law violation in broad daylight in display that you could actually engage in litigation. Remember this shit? Oh yeah, the jihad, the day of jihad. 1 year ago, political figures spread a false terrorism panic that made everyone less free and incited a violence against a child. Yeah, remember the day of jihad that was supposed to happen? Oh, dude, it's wonderful how much like that day of jihad shit is like identical to universalizing 9/11. You know what I mean? To like nationalizing it in the same way that like the anthrax attacks played a formative role. At least that was like a deliberate and calculated way that like, you know, there was some harm caused, people died, they could like make it seem as though that was like there was valid concern. But the day of jihad shit, I think, is just, you know, people operating on autopilot at this point. They don't even our espionage agencies don't even try to mail anthrax to people no longer. You know what I mean? They're just like, there's already so much resilient Islamophobia that we could just say it's going to happen and then people will believe it. Yeah, I've talked to USC students who have been denied their diploma for participating in the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, who had to write a letter to the school apologizing for being anti-genocide in order to be able to get their diploma. By the way, that's what they do. Straight up. That's like not even a joke. That is 100% a real thing that I know happened to some USC students that I directly talked to. USC, the very same school that refused to let their valedictorian speak because she is hijabi. And they were worried that as a hijabi, she might bring up Israel's genocide. This is institutional rot. This is just pure vitriolic racism, for the record. Speaking of pure vitriolic racism, I wanted to point to this person, a wonderful former friend of the show that is getting blasted on the timeline, just like you're getting blasted by the top of the hour ad break if you are not subscribed at the top of the hour. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you could do for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Wait, friend of the show, I'm joking. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. Can you look at my former chat? Palestinian protests in Denmark is taken over by Trotskyists who have turned the protests into a newspaper stand and enlistment event. Would you still join the protest? Yes. That's just regular. Anytime there's a protest, there's an opportunity to sell newspapers. Here's Brianna Wu. Free Palestine openly calling for violence and terrorism. The KKK regularly came to my college, Ole Miss, to protest, and we let them. It's a free speech issue, but they never openly called for violence like Free Palestine. I need you to understand something. When you let that reactionary dog inside of you chirp, okay, it overtakes your entire brain. And slowly but surely, you go from like, hold up, I'm uninitiated with this Israel stuff. Let me defend Israel unconditionally as it's doing genocide. When your starting point is that, you allow so much insanity to just overtake your consciousness. That's an insane thing to openly state. You're literally just saying like the KKK is better than Free Palestine protesters. I generally agree that we should ignore people like Brianna Wu, but it's also strategically very important to highlight that the most outspoken pro-Israel figures these days publicly make claims such as the KKK never openly called for violence. Very famously, the Ku Klux Klan doesn't call for violence. What the are you saying? The entire organization is built around doing violence. Maybe not to you because you're white. What an idiot. It's insane. Like saying the KKK is better than the Free Palestine movement is so psychopathic. I don't think there's a lot. Like, what is the avenue for this? I mean, this shit got 2.4 thousand likes, by the way. Like, who is this for? Who is this for? Like, even the other dumbasses who are like, who got like all the NATO flags in the bio, okay? Who are like the gay NATO liberals are like, the KKK have a very long history of violence. You could criticize much of the Free Palestine movement without effectively downplaying the KKK. Not hard to do, you know? Like, you're losing your own fans, dude. This is like already an increasingly small avenue. Like the annoying Biden busters who are like wrong on every issue and still are firmly committed to this weird ideology that seemingly changes on a daily fucking basis. But you're even losing those guys. So who's this for? Like, who is this for? I do not understand. Who's the guy out there that's like, you know what? You're right. The KKK isn't that bad. The Free Palestine movement is. There is like 8 people that would think this, because the people that think the Free Palestine movement sucks also that don't necessarily have issues with the KKK are like they're Klans members, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this is what happens when you escape the hug box a little bit. When you're geared, when your entire worldview revolves around like regurgitating whatever the you read on the Divorcelli subreddit, you come across like an absolute moron. E. Fartlow wanted to say personally and publicly, thank you for your year of nonstop allyship and support for the truth. Wanted to say personally and publicly, thank you for a year of nonstop allyship and support for the truth. We will never forget that you stood with us during this time every single day. I'm E. Fartlow, and I saw a sign that said free parking, and I thought to myself, free Palestine. The Jews are tired. That's right. E. Fartlow, #1 defender of Israel, who is a Scottish woman living in Los Angeles. She's not Irish. She's Scottish. What? 25, lesbian, desister, detrans, American Israeli classic true trick pony, writing about gender and Middle East politics. Buy me a coffee, Maya Poet. Tomorrow marks my 1-year anniversary of not wearing a breast binder. On October 7, I awoke to a siren. I didn't have enough time to squeeze myself into the barbaric breast squashing device I had used to pass as a man. I had only enough time to run to a bomb shelter. Amazing. Thank you, Hamas. What? Hamas made me detransition is definitely one of the craziest grifter stances we've gotten out of this site. Dude, okay. Dude, come on. Come on. That's kind of awesome. That's kind of awesome, dude. That is, oh God, they still, this website still got it. It's still, dude, that's cinema. There is nothing. I can't even say anything. I can't cook up something funnier than that, even if I tried. I tried to cook up something and it became a real person. Ryan Ruth. Okay. The real world still consistently finds a way to make something infinitely funnier than anything I could dream of. Okay. Half of the characters that are like, or half of the news stories that occur now in real life were Cumtown bits from like 5 years ago. Okay. Hamas was responsible for my detransition. For me to become a detransitioner is like not even a bit that I could come up with. I could not come up with that. It's fantastic. Incredible. Statements for the Minnesota Vikings for the 1-year anniversary of the reprehensible Hamas attacks on Israel. Oh, dude. Oh, thank God we got the Minnesota Vikings take on the reprehensible attacks of Hamas. Thank you, Minnesota Vikings. Otherwise, your silence would be deafening. That's incredible. Yeah, no, this person is a grifter. Come on, dude. Dude, detransitioners are so marginal that there's like a handful of them, and every single one of them gets a media job to shit on trans people. Like, they are so statistically tiny. They are like 0.5% of a percent. Like, it's not, there are more outspoken like black Republicans than there are detransitioners. Okay. Like, there is not, I don't even talk about them in general. There's just such little freaks. Of course, this person is like transphobic as that's the whole point. Incredible stuff. How can you be a reactionary conservative and look like that? Like, you still look like a lesbian. You're still going to get the shit beat out of you by your friends. Report from Doll World. We are getting more Blair Whites as of late, though. Not going to lie. Yeah. What are you talking about? Like, aren't there like a bunch of bunch of like trans influencers that are trying to do their new version of like Dime Square style, like I love having vocal fry and doing a shit ton of ket and also being like indecipherable in my politics. And I'm also a trans woman who is pro MAGA. And it's like, dude, shut up. You just want attention, okay? Like, that's it. You're not unique at all. I know, I see it. I see it. Why do you know what Dime Square is? What do you mean? Like, of course I know what Dime Square is. Half of the podcasts that spawn out of that shithole were all designed around being formerly leftist, like edgy leftists, and now are just like all MAGA diehards. Why are you associating being trans with ketamine? Okay, you have a unique username that kind of fits both of the stereotypes that I was shitting on, but it has nothing to do with you, okay? Oh, Jesus. What is this? That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, Japanese soldiers keeps fighting 29 years after last Red Scare Patreon episode. It's like, give it up. Give it up. Please. Who is this for? I shouldn't have even shown this. This is so sad. No, let's just not. Let's move away from this, please. Anyway. To be honest, getting my diagnosis was just a weight lifted, and finding that the HRT exacerbated my diabetes that gave me weeks to live. That's the only reason why I detransitioned. No, like it is hyper rare. And even in that hyper rarity, most detransitioners detransition because of either social pressure, like anti-trans social pressure, or they detransition due to some medical reasons like you just mentioned. And even then, it's already super rare. And those people still want to medically transition in most of those circumstances. But also beyond that, the detransitioners that like are anti-trans after the fact are like literally, and I mean straight up, like 10 total people. They just happen to be 10 total people that the media handpicks and always like writes articles about, in an effort to make it seem like this is a very common phenomenon. Ollie London comes to mind. All right, let's see what VP Vice President Harris, running for president right now, Second Gentleman Mark, October 7, Hamas attacks on Israel. Let's see how they...
In a few moments, Doug and I will plant a tree here on the grounds of the residence of the Vice President of the United States. And we dedicate this tree to the 1,200 innocent souls in an act of pure evil on October 7, 2023, who were massacred by Hamas terrorists. 46 of our fellow Americans were killed in this brutal terrorist attack, including a singer from Missouri who died shielding her son from bullets, an academic and peace activist who studied in Seattle and who was the grandson of Holocaust survivors, and a dancer from California who was killed alongside her fiancé while attending the Nova Music Festival.
Can you imagine the coverage of the 43,000 dead Palestinians, all that had similar dreams, aspirations, like people who were committed to a life of education, you know, things of that nature? No, of course not. You wouldn't have enough time to talk about it. This is, once again, exclusively humanizing Israelis and simultaneously omitting the humanity of Palestinians. Make no mistake, okay? And I'm not even going to play these games. I know that people will be like, Hasan, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you act like October 7 wasn't an atrocity? It's been 12 months, okay? If you cared about the humanity of all people, you would have stopped Israel a long fucking time ago and given a lot of these people in Israel the time to grieve, instead of using the slain as a mechanism to do genocide, as a You made the dead party to your actions. Okay? It's gross. It's a super gross, super shallow way of analyzing and contextualizing the situation. I'm sorry. I don't give a f. That's it. Sorry. You don't care. You do not give a shit. Does this help the election though? No, dude. What do you mean? It's like Biden's least popular policy is the continuation of Israel's genocide, is literally his least popular policy. He's losing to Trump by like 25, 30 points. And Kamala Harris is like desperately ran in that exact same direction since she became the candidate for no reason, like literally zero reason whatsoever.
I am devastated by the pain and loss that occurred on October 7, and Doug and I pray for the family and loved ones of all of those who were lost, and may their memories be a blessing. Today, I know many Jews will be reciting and reflecting on the Jewish prayer for mourning, the Kaddish. The words of the prayer are not about death.
By the way, this omission is the exact same false narrative that was presented on October 7, as though this was the pivotal act, the first step in this Israeli war, okay? Because Israel did October 7 numbers every time they invaded Gaza, every single time prior to October 7, okay? And to not mention that, or the 75 years of apartheid, or the numerous other forms of dominating the Palestinian population and the ethnic displacement that had to have happened in order for Israel to even exist, within the context of how October 7 could have happened, is the exact same shit that she's doing here, which is never covering and never offering any lip service, even no recognition whatsoever to the Palestinians that have been ruthlessly slaughtered for 12 months and continue to be slaughtered every single day with the bombs that she and her administration is gladly shipping off to Israel. Okay? These are monstrous genocidal people. Okay? They are giant pieces of shit. I do not give a fuck about them. I do not give a fuck about their opinions. I do not care about their incredibly hollow statements here. Oh, October 7 was so sad is absolutely unimportant here. The real reason why she's doing this is to remind people why Israel has to continue turning up the genocide dial. Okay? Again, 2 decades of relative peace was shattered on October 7. Relative peace doing an unimaginable amount of weightlifting here. Relative peace for who? Relative peace for the Israelis that were living inside of the apartheid regime, sheltered from the victimhood, sheltered from the worst aspects of said apartheid regime, the violent ways in which it has to exist. Yeah, relative peace for them. October 7 was the one instance where there was no peace, where that violence was actually distributed back inside of Israel. A violence born out of desperation, a violence born out of apartheid and permanent occupation for a group of individuals who saw no way out but to fight their way out. That's it. That's literally it. And that same omission exists right here, okay?
It is a prayer about our enduring belief in God, even in our darkest moments. So as we reflect on the horrors of October 7, let us please be reminded that we cannot lose faith.
Yeah, the planting of the tree is also symbolic, which is the eco-terrorism that Israel engages in. We've talked about this quite a bit, obviously, which is so insidious and crazy. You give money to Israel to plant trees, not realizing that that tree planting mission is happening on top of the olive groves that once were there, that were destroyed by the Israeli occupying force, on top of Arab villages where Palestinians lived for hundreds of years, in an effort to westernize the land and make it seem more Western facing. It is ecocide. It's eco-terrorism.
The Jewish philosopher, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, wrote, and I quote, "Religion begins with a consciousness that something is asked of us." So in this moment, on the one-year commemoration of October 7, what is asked of us? What is asked of us? First and foremost, I believe that we must never forget. I will never forget October 7, and the world must never forget. What?
Like, yeah, never forget. I know. It's only, it never forget means like, you know, just for 9/11, just for October 7, always forget if Israel is, you know, please forget all the things that Israel has done to the Palestinians since then. Please don't even think about it, actually. Just think about this.
What is asked of us? We must work to ensure nothing like the horrors of October 7 can ever happen again. And on this solemn day, I will restate my pledge to always ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself, and that I will always work to ensure the safety and security of the Jewish people here and around the world. What is asked of us? We must reunite the hostages held in Gaza with their families, and I will never stop fighting for the release of all the hostages, including the American citizens, living and deceased. Omer.
Unless they're killed by Israel, in which case, suck my dick, for the record. You can't reflect on 10/7 without reflecting on everything that came after and what like 80% of her base would like her to renounce, or what came before it. Because what came before it is also pretty significant. If you personally think this kind of hatred materialized amongst the Palestinian population of Gaza out of nowhere, then you're delusional. You are no different than a QAnon supporter, okay? The only difference is it's like if every media outlet was worse than Fox News in terms of like repeating this QAnon narrative. That's it. And people still genuinely do believe that. They're like, oh, no, these guys are like ancient anti-Semitism. They have that ancient anti-Semitism in their hearts. That's why they did October 7. Ah.
Idan, Sagi, Keith, Judy, God.
October 7 is best explained how you think is Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That's it. Or in Arabic, the Warsaw Intifada, as a matter of fact.
And Ite. What is asked of us? We must uphold the commitment to repair the world, an idea that has been passed on throughout generations of the Jewish people and across many faiths. And to that end, we must work to relieve the immense suffering of innocent Palestinians in Gaza who have experienced so much pain.
If she, dude, she's mentioning the Palestinians. Come on, we have to relieve the Palestinian pain in Gaza.
And loss over the year. What is asked of us? We must continue to see light amidst the darkness. As the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, a people that can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and still rejoice is a people that cannot be defeated by any force or fear.
Bro, you're just describing Palestinians. What the straight up, like that perfectly fits the Palestinian existence and experience.
That is why today we plant a pomegranate tree, which in Judaism is a symbol of hope and righteousness. So for years to come, this pomegranate tree will stand here, spreading its roots and growing stronger, to remind future vice presidents of the United States, their families, and all who pass through these grounds, not only of the horror of October 7th, but the strength and the endurance of the Jewish people. It will remind us all not to abandon the goal of peace, dignity.
I do personally think it's like deeply anti-Semitic and gross to deliberately and vociferously tie Judaism, Jewish culture, Jewish history to Israel's current acts, Israel's genocidal ambition. I will never stop saying that because it is deeply and grossly anti-Semitic. I will not stop saying that even if there are very loud Jewish Zionists in the United States of America and in the Western world that also tie this aspect back to their own shared history. It's still gross. It's still wrong. I don't give a f if you say that. It is ridiculous. Okay? Like, it should probably maybe cause a little bit of confusion how much Nazis and ultra-Zionists align on this one issue. Nazis would be like, oh, dual loyalty. You know, Jews have dual loyalty. Jews have dual loyalty. They're all monolithic in their understanding. They only care about Israel. That's the only thing they care about. They control the media as an aspect of this. And then Zionist Israel defenders say the same shit. They're like, no, you don't understand. All Jews are Zionists. All Jews care about is Israel. That's the number one thing that they care about. I do not understand how people fail to comprehend how damaging this narrative is, how much this discourse goes a long way in recontextualizing the interpersonal relationships that American citizens have with other American Jews, okay? They do not see it. They do not see the larger picture. They do not see the larger picture at all. It is terrifying. It is terrifying to me as a person who cares about Palestinian emancipation and as a person who cares about ensuring that anti-Semitism does not fester. I despise it. It is a double Monty that they engage with. In one single blow, they literally cast aside Palestinians as subhuman while simultaneously saying all Jews are monolithic in their commitment to Israel's violent ambitions, no matter where they are in the world. It is a falsehood and a very dangerous one. Holy shit. And I will not stop doing that no matter what. I will not stop speaking truth in this regard, no matter how many say I'm anti-Semitic, okay? They can suck my dick from the back.
And security for all. And it will remind us all to always have faith. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the second gentleman, my husband, Doug.
Oh, here we go. We're going to watch that. But before then, here, let's watch something at least a little bit pleasant.
Me, because when the attacks on the 7th happened, I kind of taken the side of Israel at that time. I guess I grew up in the with a very Zionist ideology.
So what brings you to these protests, particularly 1 year into what Israel's been doing in Gaza and now in Lebanon and across Palestine as well?
Yeah, so this is my first protest. I wanted to come many times, but just never really happened. But yeah, I would say it's quite personal to me because when the attacks on the 7th happened, I kind of taken the side of Israel at that time because, again, I don't think I knew so much in depth how Palestinian people were oppressed and all of that. So, and in 2013 or 14, I actually visited Israel myself because I do have Russian Jewish ancestry. And so I guess I grew up in the with a very Zionist ideology. So in my family we always idolized Israel and stuff. So it was always kind of we never spoke.
Dylan Saba, who is Jewish himself, brought this up in the talks that we had in the event that Kayvon threw the other night on Saturday, which I thought was a very interesting perspective, and maybe some of the Jewish chatters will be able to speak to this as well. That Judaism as a concept, especially among Reform Jews in the United States of America and the Western world, is not exactly held up. It's very a lot of Jews are fairly secular, right? So the sense of community almost entirely comes from Israel and Zionism. It's almost as though Zionism has taken the place of religious Judaism. And that is part of the reason why so many even young Jews will maintain this like identity where they do legitimately think, do legitimately feel as though like they are under attack when someone says like Zionism is unconscionable. Like it is legitimately analyzed. It's wrong, but it is, but that doesn't change the reality that like a lot of people do actually look at Israel as like the singular safe haven for Jews. A lot of Jews in America, I'm saying. It's sad that Israel has become synonymous with tzedakah. Yeah, I mean, Dylan is the GOAT. Dylan Saba is fantastic. He's been on TrueAnon a bunch of times. PSL guy. He's a lawyer for Palestine Legal. He is fantastic. He even went to Turkey recently because they wanted to do a they wanted to push through the Israeli blockade and offer humanitarian aid by water to Gaza. Like that was, and the last time a Turkish ship did that, a Turkish humanitarian aid did that, they shot and killed them. So he was ready to put his body on the line. Mavi Marmara is what is the incident that I'm talking about. They want to do a humanitarian flotilla, similar to that. I didn't know better as a young Jew. You did such a good job of defending Jews accurately against anti-Semitism that I listened to you about Zionism and learned. I'm just glad that you were open-minded to hear that, especially when I know from my Jewish friends that like, and all the Jewish shouters I've spoken to at pro-Palestinian rallies and whatnot, that like, you get almost excommunicated. I mean, not almost. You get excommunicated like a former Mormon if you're an anti-Zionist. Like people just, you literally are robbed of your community. It's really gross. I literally went to a Jewish professionals event to meet some new Jewish friends last week, and the vast majority of the event was about Israel and 10/7. They even had announced a fundraiser that was for more money to send to the IDF. I couldn't help but slightly chuckle at the notion that the IDF needs more money, but I still had to conceal my politics because I knew I'd be ostracized. I was mad uncomfortable the whole time. It is pretty crazy. Anti-Zionist Jew here. I would have to agree with you here. I grew up learning that Israel is a part of my Jewish identity, and I have had to go through a lot of unlearning, and thank you for being a big help during that process. Free Palestine. Yeah, that's why I get called an anti-Semite, by the way, by stopantisemitism.org or all these other institutions. And I know for a fact, okay, I know for a fact, unless you're like the most rabid psychopath, like, you know, I'm not anti-Semitic. You are out of your mind, dude. Like this entire time, if I was anti-Semitic for the past 10 years of my professional career, I have been getting death threats from anti-Semitic Nazis for my defense of Jewish people, while simultaneously still advocating for a free Palestine. Like, get the f out of here. It's so gross. You betray the severity of anti-Semitism being the canary in the coal mine of all different types of bigotry, of fascism, when you make this idiotic notion be known, when you use it as like a very deliberate weapon. I lived in Israel for 7 years. When I was a kid, all I remember was the fear of suicide bombs on buses and rockets flying. It's not until your coverage did I learn about the Zionism that was ingrained in me by my schools in Haifa and even my parents. It's so gross, dude. Yeah, Israel is like, today is the one day that like American media and Western media and Israeli media is mentioning the hostages, and Benjamin Netanyahu was like, all right, calm down. Stop talking about the hostages, bro. Come on. You're going to remind people that I'm too busy. You're going to remind people that forgot that I'm like so invested in bombing Lebanon that they forgot completely that I like dropped the ball on the hostage situation entirely. I've yet to talk about Turkey. I will. But the problem is, like, every time someone's like, yo, can you talk about Turkey, please? They just send the video. I will.
Talking about the pressure of Palestinians and their actual, like, real history. So I would say only after the attacks, like, I started, like, doing more research into it. Because obviously, like, living in the UK, and I'm not, like, a religious Jew or anything like that, so I never really, like, done enough research, like, beforehand. So obviously a year on now, like, I know a lot more, and I totally understand, like, that this is a colonial state and what they actually done to Palestinian people. I learned a lot what's happening in West Bank, you know.
The cognitive dissonance is also particularly damning because, like, Jews, due to their shared history and culture of pogroms and the Holocaust, are so primed to seeing inequality in general. Like, it goes to show anyone can have this kind of attitude, really. Like, the cognitive dissonance is so damning, dude. Like, Jews during the Holocaust, they were directly in the crosshairs because of the revolutionary sentiment. It was called, you know, cultural Bolshevism or Judeo-Bolshevism. That was the main target and main priority of the Nazis. Jews have also historically been at the fucking forefront of every single civil rights movement historically, including this one as well. It's really insane.
Like, people are leaving behind like barbed wire and stuff. I had no idea. Obviously, visiting Israel as a tourist, I only saw good sides. You know, I just thought like, oh, okay, like Jews and Arabs are living in peace. So that's what I thought. I didn't see the, you know, the reality behind the scenes. And now we can see West Bank, and now we see Lebanon. It's obviously not self-defense, as you know, Israel keeps attacking all the Middle Eastern countries, and the goal is pretty clear. Yeah.
What would you say the goal is?
I think just to take over. It's a land grab, and it's to be like hold that like dominant.
Also, the Jewish chatters, to the Jewish chatters that see like anti-Semitic tendencies from people that present themselves as like anti-Zionist or whatever, or anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism rising, because that is real. It is definitely rising. Just remember what I always say. It is not about, like, if a Black Lives Matter activist was like, yo, Muslims, okay, and Palestine, that would not stop me from still advocating for Black people and their emancipatory struggle in the United States of America. Because it's not about like I don't have this opinion because I have this transactional opinion, like this transactional relationship where it's like, well, I'm fighting for you, why don't you fight for me? Like, it's not. That's not how this works. So it is like, you have to always remind yourself that your moral compass is unyielding, is unchanging. You're not doing this because you want people to like you. You're doing this because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. It is why telling queer people that Hamas hates them doesn't really do anything to our solidarity. Exactly. Exactly. It's not supposed to be transactional. You're not like
power in the Middle East. So and war, it's a continuous war because it makes money. So the UK keeps arming, you know, Israel, same as US, just because it keeps making the money.
You know, her parents are so pissed. Yo, her mom and dad are livid, okay? There is no way. Oh my God, dude. Rosh Hashanah dinner, holy shit. Shit was lit up like a regular old Thanksgiving in you know, Tennessee. You know the conversations are heated.
So yeah.
Okay. So your life experiences are very interesting. So I want to ask two questions simultaneously, which is, how did the unlearning happen? And also, if you would be able to send a message to people who had the thinking, still have the thinking that you used to have, what would you want to say to them? So kind of two things.
I'll just say, do your research. And there's so many Jewish people across the world that also support Palestine. Like, I just think like what needs to happen is stop attaching Jewish people to the state of Israel. Because literally, like, I have nothing, like, there's nothing that connects me to that state. And I think that's like my message to the Jewish people around the world, is to detach themselves from that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God. Oh my God. My optics God. My optic God. Oh my God. Oh, that's incredible. Oh, he is the GOAT. Dude, he is the GOAT. Kamala Harris, like, think about the virgin Kamala Harris, okay? I'm going to plant a tree because, you know, October 7 happened and that's really sad, okay? Versus the absolute legend, okay? Wearing a kippah, holding up a kidnap poster, smiling ear to ear next to Ben Shapiro. God damn. God damn, dude. He is the optics god. This is way funnier than this is way funnier than playing Ave Maria in honor of like Corey Contemporore, ringing the bells and being like, he had the best seat in the house. He had the best seat in the house. This man, this is literally another moment where he's throwing the thumbs up with the families of the veteran that or with the soldier that died in Afghanistan, sitting on top of a military grave right there where another soldier killed himself. Okay, in prominent display, going, yeah, throw up the thumbs up. Smiles, everyone. Biden killed him. Yo. Oh, God. It's just like, it's a perfect demonstration that he does not give a like, he hasn't even thought it through. He's just like, I don't give a shit, dude. It's all optics, baby. I'm just doing the thing. You want me to do the thing? You want me to hold up a poster? Whatever. What is this, a Muslim? This kid looks brown. Am I holding up one of those Muslim Jews? Is that what it is? I don't know. I put the kippah on. What do you want from me? Come on, Jews. Vote for me. Come on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. He asked the rabbi at the memorial service if he wants him to autograph the prayer book. I love it. Oh, so good. He is what a legend, dude. He is so insane. Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, anti-Semitic incidents in U.S. surged a record high. According to the ADL, I wanted to bring this up as well. The ADL officially admits it counts pro-Palestine activism as anti-Semitic. Seems vital to mention in the post that it's an ADL report whose director compared the Palestinian keffiyeh to a swastika. Just a fun little reminder. Part of the overall increase comes from a change in the methodology to include expressions of opposition to Zionism, as well as support for resistance against Israel or Zionists that could be perceived as supporting terrorism, the ADL said. Have some shame today.